Star Wars gaming does not get better than this. These 25 titles cover every corner of a galaxy far, far away, and prove the franchise has given us some of the greatest games ever made. Star Wars Jedi Survivor opens the list at number 1 as the most visually stunning and mechanically refined Star Wars action game ever released. Cal Kestis returns with an expanded combat system that introduces 5 distinct lightsaber stances, each radically changing how you approach every encounter. The worlds are richly detailed and reward exploration, and the Force abilities feel genuinely powerful in a way few games in the franchise have managed. The story carries real emotional weight and connects meaningfully to the broader Star Wars timeline. For any fan who wants to feel like a true Jedi, this is the single best game the franchise has produced in the modern era. Coming in strong at number 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the game that revitalized Star Wars gaming and proved the franchise still had untapped potential. Set immediately after Order 66, it puts you in the role of Cal Kestis, a surviving Padawan hiding from the Empire. The gameplay blends Metroidvania exploration with Dark Souls-inspired combat, creating a loop that is demanding but consistently rewarding. Level design is layered and encourages revisiting earlier areas with newly acquired Force abilities. The campaign is emotionally driven and confidently told, making this an essential experience for both Star Wars fans and action game enthusiasts. Number 3 belongs to Star Wars Outlaws, the franchise's first true open-world adventure and one of the boldest designs in the entire library. You play as Kay Vess, a scoundrel navigating the criminal underworld between the events of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. The game features explorable planets, faction-based reputation systems, and stealth mechanics that give missions genuine flexibility. Combat is satisfying and supported by a companion dynamic that adds character to every encounter. It captures the spirit of the original trilogy in a way that feels fresh rather than nostalgic, delivering a substantial experience in a living galaxy. Arriving at 4, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is widely regarded as one of the greatest RPGs ever made, not just one of the best Star Wars games. Set thousands of years before the films, it gives you the freedom to build your own character and choose between the light and dark side across a deeply written narrative. The turn-based combat system is approachable without sacrificing depth, and the companion roster is full of memorable, well-voiced characters. The twist midway through the story remains one of the most celebrated moments in gaming history. No serious Star Wars fan should leave this one unplayed. 5th place goes to Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic 2, The Sith Lords, a darker and more philosophically complex follow-up to the original. Developed by Obsidian Entertainment, it digs deeper into the nature of the Force and presents moral ambiguity that the first game only touched on. Your companion characters are more interconnected with the story and grow in response to your choices, creating a sense of genuine consequence. The Restored Content mod, which is widely available, fixes content cut before the original release and is considered essential. As a narrative experience within the Star Wars universe, it arguably surpasses even its predecessor. Star Wars Battlefront 2 from EA claims 6th place as the franchise's premier large-scale multiplayer experience. After a rocky launch, the game received years of post-launch content and is now considered one of the most content-rich Star Wars games on Steam. Ground battles, space combat, and hero versus villain modes are all present, with maps spanning the entire Skywalker saga. The visual presentation is stunning and captures the scale of Star Wars warfare better than any other title. For players who want to feel like a soldier in the middle of a galactic war, this game delivers that fantasy with impressive consistency. Number 7 belongs to Star Wars Squadrons, the most dedicated and immersive starfighter experience in the franchise's gaming history. You pilot iconic ships, including X-Wings, TIE Fighters, and A-Wings, from a first-person cockpit perspective with full VR support. Fleet Battles mode asks you to coordinate with teammates to disable and destroy capital ships, adding strategic depth to dogfighting. Ship customization is deep and meaningfully affects how each vehicle handles in combat. For anyone who has ever dreamed of flying into a Star Destroyer attack run, this game is the closest thing to actually doing it. Star Wars Republic Commando steps into 8th as a tactical squad shooter that remains one of the most underappreciated games in the entire franchise. Set during the Clone Wars, you lead a 4-man squad of elite clone troopers through increasingly complex combat scenarios. The AI teammates are responsive and useful, and the tactical command system is intuitive enough that managing your squad never feels like a burden. The atmosphere is gritty and grounded, offering a boots-on-the-ground perspective rarely explored in Star Wars media. The remastered version on Steam brings it fully up to date and makes it more accessible than ever before. At number 9, Star Wars: The Old Republic is the franchise's only MMORPG and remains one of the most story-rich online games in any universe. 8 fully voiced class storylines each offer dozens of hours of unique content, with decisions that genuinely affect how your story progresses. Much of the core content is free to play, making the entry barrier remarkably low for a game of this scale. The companion system and conversation mechanics bring a BioWare RPG quality to the MMO format that few games in the genre have matched. Even played as a solo experience, the class stories alone make this worth dozens of hours of your time. Star Wars Bounty Hunter Remaster lands at 10 as a polished return of a beloved classic that finally gives Jango Fett the game he always deserved. Developed by Aspyr, the remaster brings updated visuals, improved controls, and widescreen support to a game originally released in 2002. You hunt down criminals, collect bounties, and navigate the seedy criminal underworld with jetpack mobility and twin blaster action. The tone is grittier than most Star Wars games and leans into the morally ambiguous side of the galaxy in interesting ways. It earned very positive reviews on Steam and stands as one of the better remaster efforts the franchise has seen. Star Wars Empire at War Gold Pack claims 11th place as the definitive Star Wars real-time strategy experience and one of the finest strategy games in the franchise's library. The base game and Forces of Corruption expansion together offer galactic conquest campaigns spanning land and space across an enormous unit roster. Ground battles let you command iconic vehicles and infantry, while space battles involve capital ship combat with meaningful tactical positioning. The modding community has kept this game alive and constantly expanding for nearly 2 decades. If you enjoy strategy games and Star Wars in equal measure, this is an unmissable title. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster enters at 12 as a loving restoration of one of the most influential first-person shooters in gaming history. Developed by Night Dive Studios, it presents the original 1995 game with cleaned-up 2D cutscenes, widescreen support, and quality-of-life improvements that make it fully playable by modern standards. You play as Kyle Katarn, a mercenary on a mission deep into Imperial territory, discovering the Dark Trooper program. The level design is inventive and demanding, and the game holds up remarkably well given its age. For fans of retro shooters and Star Wars lore, this is a genuinely essential experience. At 13, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2 Jedi Outcast continues the story of Kyle Katarn and delivers what many fans consider the gold standard of lightsaber combat in any Star Wars game. Built on the Quick 3 engine, the shooting mechanics are already strong, but the transition to force powers and lightsaber combat midway through the game elevates it into something truly special. Enemies react realistically to saber strikes, and the force powers create genuinely creative combat moments. The multiplayer mode was legendary in its time and shaped an entire generation of Star Wars gamers. It remains a must-play for anyone who wants to understand the peak of the Jedi Knight series. Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy arrives at number 14 as the most mechanically flexible lightsaber game in the entire franchise. You create a custom character and choose your missions in a non-linear structure that was unusual for its time. Saber-style customization is deep, allowing single, staff, and dual-blade configurations, each with distinct advantages. The force powers are expansive, and the game rewards creative use of abilities in ways that still feel satisfying today. Its multiplayer community remains active through dedicated fan servers, which is a remarkable testament to how much players love this game 2 decades after its release. Star Wars: The Force Unleashed claims 15 as the title that made every Star Wars fan feel the raw, cinematic power of the Force for the first time. You play as Starkiller, a secret apprentice of Darth Vader, with devastatingly powerful Force abilities that let you hurl enemies, vehicles, and debris across environments. The story bridges the gap between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope and features major characters and revelations that carry genuine weight. The physics-based destruction makes every encounter visually spectacular. It was a landmark moment for the franchise and still delivers an enormously satisfying power fantasy. Number 16 goes to Star Wars: The Force Unleashed 2, which takes the spectacle of its predecessor and pushes the visual and combat presentation even further. Starkiller returns with dual lightsabers and even more aggressive Force abilities, and the game leans fully into cinematic action over narrative depth. Levels are shorter and more linear than the first game, but the quality of individual set pieces is higher, and the moment-to-moment gameplay feels consistently thrilling. The boss fights are dramatic and well-staged, and the environments are among the most visually impressive in the series. If you loved the first game, this is a natural and rewarding continuation. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer lands at 17 as one of the most purely fun experiences in the entire Star Wars game catalog. Based on the iconic pod racing sequence from The Phantom Menace, the game expands the concept into a full racing experience with dozens of unique racers, tracks across multiple planets, and an upgrade system that rewards consistent performance. The speed is genuinely exhilarating, and the controls are tight enough to make mastery feel satisfying. It received a full re-release on Steam with improved resolution support and controller compatibility. For a game from 1999, it holds up with surprising quality and remains enormously entertaining. Star Wars Battlefront from 2005 steps into 18th as the game that defined large-scale Star Wars combat for an entire generation. Land battles across iconic locations from all three original trilogy films, combined with space combat and hero appearances, created an experience that felt like stepping directly into the films. The AI behavior on large maps creates chaotic, emergent moments that feel genuinely cinematic. Its sequel expanded on the formula, but the original still holds a special place for the sheer clarity and excitement of its design. The Steam version allows players to connect through fan-maintained servers that keep the multiplayer alive. X-Wing Alliance arrives at 19 as the most complete and ambitious entry in the beloved X-Wing space simulation series. You fly as a member of a neutral smuggling family, gradually drawn into the Rebel Alliance, creating a personal narrative that gives the space combat a meaningful context. The campaign spans dozens of missions and culminates in a recreation of the Death Star trench run from Return of the Jedi. Cockpit controls reward deep engagement and skilled piloting, and the capital ship battles are genuinely impressive for their era. Fan patches and mods have kept it fully functional on modern systems and expanded it considerably. Star Wars TIE Fighter Special Edition lands at number 20 as one of the finest space simulation games ever made and a true classic of the genre. Uniquely, it puts you in the cockpit of Imperial ships rather than Rebel ones, telling the story of the Galactic Civil War from a perspective rarely explored. The mission design is complex and demanding, and the narrative rewards players who complete optional objectives with additional story context. The game has a moral sophistication that was remarkably ahead of its time, asking you to question loyalty, duty, and the nature of the Empire. Essential for any fan of simulation games or Star Wars storytelling. Star Wars Galactic Battleground Saga claims 21 as an Age of Empires 2 style real-time strategy experience built entirely around the Star Wars universe. Developed on a modified version of the Age of Empires 2 engine, it features 6 factions, including the Galactic Empire, Rebel Alliance, and Trade Federation, across 2 campaigns of substantial length. Resource gathering, base building, and large-scale unit combat all follow familiar RTS conventions, executed cleanly within the Star Wars setting. The Saga Edition includes the Clone Campaign's expansion, doubling the content available. It remains a charming and genuinely playable strategy experience for fans of both the genre and the universe. Star Wars Starfighter steps into 22 as a focused and entertaining starfighter action game that serves the prequel era with real enthusiasm. Set during the events of The Phantom Menace, you fly multiple ship types across missions tied to the Battle of Naboo. The The controls are accessible, and the mission variety keeps the pacing engaging across the full campaign. 3 playable characters each bring a distinct ship and personality to the experience, adding welcome variety. It is a straightforward and well-made arcade space shooter that captures the energy of the prequel trilogy's space sequences with polish and fun. Star Wars Rebellion arrives at 23 as the franchise's most ambitious grand strategy experience, putting you in command of either the Galactic Empire or Rebel Alliance across the entire galaxy. You manage diplomacy, troop deployment, espionage, ship construction, and even the Death Star, all simultaneously across hundreds of star systems. The scope is enormous, and the depth of decision-making is genuinely impressive for a game from 1998. Tracking down the hidden Rebel base as the Empire, or undermining Imperial controls system by system as the Rebellion, creates tense and memorable strategic encounters. It remains a unique experience within the franchise that no other game has fully replicated. LEGO Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga enters at 24 as the most content-rich and accessible Star Wars game ever made, covering all 9 mainline films across a single enormous package. The new combat system is a significant upgrade over previous LEGO games, with actual lightsaber duels, third-person shooting, and meaningful upgrade trees that add genuine depth. Each saga era has its own hub world to explore, and the number of collectibles, secret characters is staggering. The humor is consistently sharp and genuinely funny for players of all ages. It is the perfect entry point for younger fans, and the joyful celebration of the entire Skywalker story for veterans.